Madison, it's a suburb
You
of
late?
Madison, basically.
So, car park it over here.
No, it's really on the east side, it's just southeast of Monona. It's on the east side of Lake,
McFarland, what am I thinking? Well,
there's a lot of little communities around, Madison.
Are you looking for something?
Small world.
Well, I was just gonna go to this.
It is a very small
Hell,
world.
I guess
That
I
one.
could, He's gonna take the minutes on this thing while we're going.
It pays to pay attention because you never know who's
Did
bad.
you get your yard sign, by the way?
I did, we got them all up.
Okay.
They're all up.
Good, 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 good.
So,
Yeah, nice little political garden going.
yeah, we did. We do. We do, and there's more, we're gonna put more signs up, like, I vote with public schools, stuff like that, so.
Yeah, I had you on my list, so
Oh, damn.
I want to make sure the volunteers were. How are you? Volunteers, you know, getting them out, so.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Mayor Dan.
wow, so the Milwaukee Mile was built before the City of West Allis was incorporated? Oh, Zach and Steve, this is Bill Henry.
Hey, Bob,
Hi.
Bill.
Hi.
You weren't in you weren't in the exit, were you?
No.
Huh? Oh, boy. Well, they closed it now. Yeah,
All
43.
backed up, so I got off from.
We're live. We are live. Yep.
Broken.
All right, good evening, everybody. We'll call the Plan Commission to order, and I will ask staff to take a roll call.
Mayor Devine.
Here.
Wayne Clark.
Here.
Kathleen Degenhart.
Here.
Jessica Katzenbauer.
Here.
Brian Frank.
Here.
David Roshka.
Here.
Brandon Reinke.
Here.
And then excuse our Rossi Monka and Eric Wilson.
All right, thanks very much. Next item will be the approval of the minutes from our August 24th meeting.
I move. Second.
Any changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The ayes have it, the motion carries. And then we'll move on to item D on our agendas. Take up 2A and 2B and 2C.
Thank you, Mayor. Gary Tree is here representing Big B Coffee, and this was before Plan Commission in August last month, which was tabled, and then we'd subsequently done the public hearing at Common Council on September 6th, and the council held action for such time to allow Plan Commission to review changes that staff has been working with Mr. Tree and Big B on for the Piggly Wiggly Shopping Center site at 102nd and National Avenue. So this is the overall property. You can see it's very parking intensive right now, but so there are surrounding uses. To the west is Target, to the south is a bank, and the Piggly Wiggly grocery store is a major tenant in the shopping center subject property, as well as a couple other new tenants coming soon, including Zoom Room, dog training, and then there's actually a Wingstop in there right now too. The zoning is C4 regional commercial, which anything with a drive-through is automatically a conditional use, so that's the reason for the review. And there are some site changes proposed as well, which also trigger site landscaping architectural review. So we've since worked with Big B and Gary's team on updating, making some site plan changes, mainly shifting the building further away from the bank. We had heard from Waterstone Bank at the last Plan Commission meeting. They were here and expressed some concerns with the location of the Big B. Some signage for traffic, improved traffic flow, staging, as well as snow storage and landscaping improvements. There is a small outlot or lot that will be created on this site. It's roughly about 1/4 of an acre, and it'll be located generally in this location. There may be some changes with respect to that shift in the building location, but it will be along that southern edge of the property, behind the bank building to the south. So on the top, on the right side of your screen is the submittal, the site plan submittal for the actual Big B site last month, and then down below that is September's revised plan. And what's changed, just summarized on the text there, 1 through 5, the building and refuse enclosure have been shifted further away from the bank drive-through. Here you can see the refuse location. This is the August plan up here, and then the September down here. So where the refuse was last month, where the refuse is on this month's plan, the building was also located in very close proximity to that bank drive-through. It has since been shifted, further east, away from that bank drive-through, There's been additional landscaping added around the refuse area, as well as around the building itself. One notable difference is that the parking, they had 5 parking stalls shown over here on the east side of the site. It's been flipped over to the west side of the site. And then the sidewalk's been added, basically connect the parking lot here to the walk-up window. So whether staff are parking here or if there's someone that's pulling up to get out of the car and actually walk up to the window to order a cup of coffee, they can do so in one of these 5 stalls here. Furthermore, they could also park in the shopping centers, 200 plus parking stalls, and walk across. There's been some driveway, crosswalk delineators put in on this plan in 3 different locations, here, here, and here, which are accessible to the larger parking field over here. And then the refuse enclosure will be feature a 4-sided gated enclosure with a personnel door on the back side, so employees don't necessarily have to open these massive gates during business hours. They can just walk in through a smaller 36-inch wide opening on the back side, throw out the garbage, and then come back into the building. So the parking, there's 5 proposed in this area just to the west of Bigby. And our code says, for a site or a use of this type, we have a maximum parking requirement. So it's based on capacity of this kiosk or this Bigby. So if there's 3 employees working here, which they, up to 3 employees would work here at any given time, 1.2 parking stalls is the cap for the Bigby site. And they're showing 5. And so the council has the ability to modify that parking requirement. If there are 3 employees working here, I think it's probably a good idea that, I think at least 3 being provided here. There's certainly enough to the north here, but Piggly Wiggly has an existing lease with the landlord, and there's a certain number of parking stalls that have to be maintained on the site. So overall they are reducing the number of parking stalls just with the introduction of this use. We don't really see the 5 that are proposed here as a problem. In fact, the resolution that we presented to council earlier this month said up to 5 parking stalls, but it could certainly be modified, I guess, if the plan commission sees fit. Just a closer view of the site plan. That last one was a little hard to look at. So you can just see that sidewalk that sort of wraps around, making connections to crosswalks, as well as a proximity to the 5 parking stalls shown in proximity to Bigby. There would be an order window, and then there would also be a pickup window here and a walk-up window on the west side of the building. It's the bigger overall view showing the parking lot directions within the shopping center. The landlord has, with the result of Wingstop, if you recall, I think it was last year, Wingstop was before the planning commission. That was approved by the council. As part of that proposal, ADA improvements were made for access into the site, for accessibility for a ramp leading down from the sidewalk along National Avenue into the site, as well as some speed humps that were introduced here. And then a crosswalk was added here with ADA stalls in this area too. So there were other site improvements that were being made that the owner is consciously making every time they introduce a new tenant, or if there's some turnover or change in use. There are actual improvements that are taking place on this site. There were also landscape islands that were added here and here as a result of that Wingstop introduction. So Bigby would represent another, I guess, a change in use from an otherwise, I guess, unused portion of the parking lot to a coffee kiosk retail use for drive up. The flow that's taking place here is directional, two-way directional here, but then it changes to a single direction as you pass this 25-foot mark here, and it goes to one-way westbound only. There would still be cross-access in and out of the bank area here. If customers want to enter or exit the bank drive-through, they could certainly do so here. They just would not be able to turn hard right because they'd be going against the grain. And they would still have that cross-access back and forth between Target as well to head north here. There'd just be a hard stop point at this general location here where it would be a do not enter beyond this point. going eastbound. This is the architectural plan that was proposed at the last planning commission meeting. It was a white cement board, a stone veneer on the base with a blue metal roofing, orange doors, orange accent signage. Since that time, Big B has updated their architectural plan, and what they're proposing is to give it a little more modern look, darker colors, instead of the stone veneer, to go with a LP diamond coat smart siding and a similar product lap siding with batten and shake, a cedar shake look. But it would all be that cementitious diamond coat smart siding.
It still has a metal roof, and
Okay.
colors to be, approved.
Okay. And then just some general renderings being shown here. These aren't necessarily of the orientation for our site here in West Dallas. I think this is from another site in Plymouth, Wisconsin. But this is just sort of the rendered view of what those could look like. In terms of the floor plan, it's a 400 square foot footprint, kitchen, storage area, restroom. The restroom is for staff use only. It's not a public restroom. They do have a walk-up window. They have, however, shrunk the patio area, and it's simply just a walk-up window. So if you do happen to park in the vicinity, you can walk up to the window. There will be a concrete pad here to stand on and order, but you're not necessarily going to sit down on anything and drink your coffee here at this location. It's general hours of operation. Taking a look at some of the other hours around us in this property, the Piggly Wiggly is generally open 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. daily. The Wingstop is open 10:30 to midnight daily, and then the Zoom Room, which is coming soon, has hours that look like 10 a.m. to about 8 p.m. during the week, and then Saturday is 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So with the Big B hours being 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., I think Gary could probably speak to when the peak hours of Big B are, but just in my limited experience of Big B, I would guess it's probably similar to the peak hours are going to be very early in the morning from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., 9 a.m. are going to be your morning peak, and there may be an afternoon or an evening, but we don't think it's really going to create an issue with the surrounding shopping center uses, and whether it be Piggly Wiggly or Wingstop or the Zoom Room. In fact, it would likely probably benefit some of those uses as just sort of a complementary use that supports staying on site a little bit longer and serving the needs of other clients that are attending, going to these properties to shop. So we're recommending approval, subject to the conditions in the staff report. I just want to note that our updated recommendation, we were asking for accurate notations on the elevations. That's been satisfied. We're still going to have a landscape plan. A formal landscape plan will actually be submitted for staff review, and our city forester would review those species. But for show, it's being shown, just generally speaking on the plan here. The traffic control measure is being reviewed and approved by engineering. Engineering has reviewed this plan, and they don't have an issue with the flow that's being presented here. They don't see it as a problem for this property or adjacent National Avenue. However, we would like to review the traffic control signage. There's going to be a package probably presented as a result of this to show exactly what types of signage they're going to have upon entering the site, or pulling up to the Big B Coffee, and then upon leaving, and then how to manage the traffic control, just so that banking customers know they can come in and out, maybe just not turn hard right. So those types of things would be reviewed by planning and engineering. And then the certified survey map will likely be updated too, just given that shift in the building a little bit to the east. I think the property lines also have to adjust as well, so just an updated CSM to reflect those things, so. With that, yeah.
And a further addition to this, Al from the bank was here last month and pointed on a few things that could be improved upon. We've done that, we've made those changes. I've circulated those back to Al and asked him to have his leadership review them. He came back with an email to me, said it's all fine. So I think it was a really good process.
Any questions from the commission? Jessica?
So could you go back to the map page, please? just a concern of the exit there. Is there going to be a lot of signage there telling people that they can't turn right? Just knowing that attentive driving is a
Yeah.
issue.
One would, well, you know, one could be, they are indicating a sign here, you know, I guess it's just a general representation, but, you know, that could have, this location could have, you know, there could obviously be more. I mean, we don't want bank customers to leave here and make a right, so this could be a no right turn. And then for customers that are entering this way, some kind of advanced warning, just that, you know, do not enter, you know, somewhere here. Just, we don't want them to more or less cross this line going eastbound. So there could be some paint markings, there could be some signage to indicate those types of safety measures.
And then is the refuge area, is that all enclosed as well too?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for taking those ideas into consideration last month, and I really like this new plan a lot better. And I commend you all for working together on this to make sure it's going to work for everybody.
Is that a motion?
I will make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Mr. Mayor,
Sure.
question for Steve. What is the Zoom room?
Dog training. So they have dog training, and it's a pet store with dog training. Yeah. So.
They picked that name before COVID? Or
Yeah.
I've been waiting on Zoom rooms in the past 2 years.
This is a general question on our zoning ordinances. Do we have a requirement or a minimum or maximum for queuing for drive-ups?
We don't, it's just by conditional use, so as part of the conditional use process, if you know, planning commission or the council feels you want more or less, you could certainly indicate that as part of this recommendation tonight.
If I may, one of the, this has come up before, this is not
Sure.
unique, and the highest traffic count for the coffee shop is in the morning.
Sure.
And it potentially could block off those parking stalls, you know, if you added 2 or 3 cars on the other end of that. But most of the stores aren't open that early, so the utilization of those parking stalls at the time when the coffee shop is a business, they're underutilized.
Sure.
So, and I see this, not to draw comparisons, but there's a Mocha in Madison, and it's in a very similar situation. It's a drive-up only in front of a strip mall.
Sure.
And they're backed up in the morning, but there's nobody in the strip mall because they don't open till 10.
I went to the Big B in Franklin, Wisconsin, a couple of weeks ago, and, is it Franklin?
Yeah.
It's Franklin.
Yeah.
That was one of 3 drive-through customers in an empty parking lot.
Sure.
Oh, that setup's a little bit different. They're part of a strip mall, and they have an end cap on that strip mall, but
Yeah,
but the idea is similar. It's a large parking lot with no one parked around you, and you're all alone.
And I don't necessarily see it as an issue. I'm more generally just asking the question for other projects.
I'm building these all over the state, so, and I built the one in Franklin, and typically we see 5 to 7 cars as being, what's, stipulated in the local ordinances. And so
Sure.
we plan on at least 5, and then, like to allow for the extension of that, recognizing there'll be some high traffic conditions from time to time.
And then one other thing, is there, can we give any consideration to the last drive aisle on the right side also only being one way? Cause that seems like an area where if somebody's gonna get into an accident, that's where it's gonna happen, where the transition from one way to 2-way.
Oh, yeah. Right.
No, I'm over on the right side,
Oh, further over here.
right there.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've got 2-way traffic in front of Piggly Wiggly and out in front of the retail, on that last drive lane, if they're turning left out of there and people are trying to get into the drive-through line, that, I don't know if I guess I'm just asking the question with everybody in the room here, is it worth having that entire outer ring be all one way up to the bank?
My discussion with our site engineer was that confuses a little bit of the entrance, because the entrance off of West National, is as you come off of West National and turn left, you're expecting 2-way traffic there right away. But if you eliminate that and just make it one way, then you're forcing the people coming down that that first row.
Yep.
To go all the way around to get back out, or to make a hard right and then a
Sure.
hard right. So, either way, it's gonna be learning a new traffic pattern, and I think the appropriate thing is to, monitor that and then make adjustments in the lane markings and the signage to help train.
Sure.
And
No, that's
we're not
fair.
opposed to any of that.
Okay.
You can do it now or do it later.
Did you get a second?
I didn't
Yeah,
get a second.
I did.
Did you second? Okay,
Yes, I
so we do have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The ayes have it, the motion carries. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, item 3.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 3 is a site landscape and architectural plan review for a private warehouse. This is located at 12300 West Adler Lane. It's an existing light industrial use, so essentially just a private warehouse and office. For Mr. Fuchs here, the zoning is M1. Light industrial is a limited use in that zoning district, so this is permitted. There are some proposed improvements in it being made to the site, to the buildings, and then in addition also to the existing warehouse on the site, which is prompting. So taking a look at the site plan, there is a planned 1,600 square foot addition to the north side of the building. This is Adler Lane right here. This is the north here, the interstate's over this way, Oak Leaf Trail is here. This is that proposed addition. It's essentially taking up this part of the driveway that was there originally. So it's just gonna be, the driveway's gonna be just regraded to get into this new addition here. The other thing that prompted this project is that there's some problems with the site, with the previous contractor specifically. The south portion of the main building, which is constructed of split face and smooth face CMU, was not properly reinforced. And that's going to require the removal of outer portions of this decorative block, installing rebar and grout and patching it all back up. So there's, this is a pretty significant repair operation to kind of fix the problems that were there with the construction. The architect and owner can speak to that more if they'd like. In the architect's opinion, the best approach is to install an EFIS system. He cited that there's improved EFIS systems out there, and this would be able to cover the patched wall areas and provide a uniform finished appearance, and they would match that color and pattern to the previous approval. One thing we'd like to note about the EFIS is that it's in our design guidelines, we do specify that it's not allowed as a building material due to its history of poor performance. And this is could be a unique situation, so we're open to the Planning Commission considering allowing EFIS here as well. It's up to Planning Commission. Just some more, I guess, about the additions. To look at the elevations, it's going to be the same height as the existing warehouse, and otherwise, it's same materials. These or the existing materials are split face, and smooth face CMU. So, in the staff report, our recommendation is to approve with the condition that an alternate exterior building material, the EFIS, be presented to our office. And again, though, we are open to the Planning Commission considering the architect's proposal for the site as it's kind of a unique repair situation. I know we consulted with David Rashka on this one, and he had some ideas as well. I don't know, David, if you want to speak to that, but that concludes this portion of the presentation.
Thank you. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, generally, so my comments were, yes, the applicant is correct that the EVIS materials are better than they have been in the past. We have specified them on projects not in the city of West Dallas, but we do use the material sometimes. It is very low cost, and that's why it's kind of a go-to, easy material to apply. I do think, though, that the city and the Plan Commission has been very consistent in not approving projects with EFIS. We just did, what was the dental building on Highway 100 in Cleveland. They came back 2 or 3 times, I think, and we required them to have an alternate material. The only times we've allowed EFIS has been if it's a small accent and it's well up off a grade. A lot of the problems with EFIS are if you're at grade, if you impact it, it's brittle. Now, and I did see they put a stone landscape buffer around the building, so you're not gonna have the lawnmower hitting it. So I'm not totally opposed to it, but like I say, we've been pretty consistent on not approving projects with EFIS and requiring an alternate material to come back. I'm not an expert, but one of the things that I had looked at today was potentially, if you're taking block out and you're putting the rebar in and you're grouting those cores, are you able to do, I know County Materials has like a 3/4 inch veneer split face. Are they able to set that into those where it's being patched? Then you don't have to clad it with anything. I don't know if that's an option, but
Well, we looked at the possibility of that, but
Okay.
as you saw, if you can go back to one of those photographs, you'll see,
Yeah.
if you could zoom in right between the two windows there, you can see, slide over to the, yeah, right where your cursor is there.
Let me zoom in a little more.
Hang on 1 second here. Slide over, okay,
Yeah.
right there.
Those things don't always pop up
They
on the
don't,
screen here.
they don't.
You can feel free to stand up and
So,
point it out too.
Sure,
if you'd like.
this, as you can see, this area right here.
it is a smart screen.
It's a
though,
live
right?
screen, so don't touch it.
We wouldn't want to patch without doing a full tooth in,
Yeah.
and we could certainly cut the face shells and put in a full depth face shell, and that's what we're gonna have to do in order to get the rebar in there, because what is also complicating this is where the rebar wasn't, or where the rebar was supposed to be, they also put foam insulation in the cores, and that was done improperly too. So when we open it up, we gotta clean out the foam and all that kind of stuff. And so we're gonna have at least a 2 foot wide spot at every rebar location. So there's not gonna be a heck of a lot of face shell left when we get done, if we try to tooth everything back in. Ideally, we're gonna be just an 8 inch column
Yep.
where the bar is. Every 4 feet is what was called out on the original drawings. Otherwise, we're gonna have 2 feet cut out every 4 feet in order to put it back in a like material. And as we indicated in our proposal, we're gonna have the same coloring, same patterns and all of that. There is an alternate type of system that is still made by the same manufacturer as the EFS, where it's direct applied. And we could look at that. Our concern is though, there's also some poor detailing and misconstruction in the areas above the window and door heads. So the weeps weren't properly installed.
Sure.
So what we wanna do is put in a whole drainage layer over the whole facade of the 25 by 60 south portion of the building, and then flash that out properly over all the openings, and then put the material on. So for this part of the building, we'll actually be putting an expanded metal drainage layer on after we put an air barrier on the existing wall surfaces. And then it would be a minimum amount of insulation as required by the EFS manufacturers, and then the finished product itself. I have been in contact with a rep, and he'll be glad to come out and meet with staff and go through all the details. And we'll also specify at least 4 times during construction of these out. I agree with you, EFS has had a bad rap and a bad reputation for a number of years.
Yep.
That's changed dramatically, the industry's been very proactive, and it's just been a matter of poor detailing and poorly monitored construction application that's caused that bad reputation that they have. They've made vast improvements.
So the
Ryan, you-
the EFS is made of what?
It's a layer of rigid insulation and essentially like a skim coat of like it's like a fake stucco, but it's like a cement based kind of
Right.
plaster material.
It's a synthetic plaster,
Yeah.
is what it is.
Gotcha. Okay, and we don't, it doesn't, because it cracks and it breaks easily, it just starts to
Yeah,
break down quickly, or?
To his earlier comments, years ago, the product was inferior and a lot of the installation and details were not good. So especially in our climate with freeze thaw and stuff, it would just deteriorate pretty quickly. We, like I say, our office, we specify it, we use it on projects, and it's as long as it's detailed correctly, and the manufacturer, Stowe, I think is the one that you're using. They're a reputable company, they've been around, they back the product up, and they have decent details that, you know, the product will stand up better here. It's still not if you're comparing EFS to like brick masonry, you're gonna pick brick masonry every day.
Sure,
but
sure.
You're also gonna pay 3 times as much to do that.
Right.
So it's an easy go-to material that contractors love because it's one of the least expensive types of facades you can put on. But again, I, from my experience, the time that I've been on plan commission, we've been very consistent, and the verbiage is in our ordinances that it's not a material that we allow on facades, so.
Wayne?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. David's rendition of the history of the Plan Commission and EFS is absolutely spot on. It's been that way for years, and I don't think we want to break from that. There are better materials, more expensive materials, but I think that we should insist that that EVIS not be used.
I would concur, that would be my stance
Okay.
too, and I 100% agree, it is a material that's used, but just from the city standpoint, we have not allowed it, and again, you're opening the door to everybody coming in and wanting to use it, and again, we've consistently not allowed projects to move forward with it, unless it was some small accents or.
Sure, little thing, nothing major, gotcha.
Correct, not an entire wall of it.
To the point that David just made about if we approve EFS here, everyone else will be flooding our applications with EFS, and we will have lost control.
Correct.
Did you mention too that it's in city code as well too?
It's in the city's design review guidelines.
Okay,
It's not established by like via ordinance, but it is in the adopted design review guidelines.
okay.
And I would approve this particular project if there's a commitment to change from EFS to something else that the planning department would agree to.
And there's the condition that we have specified in the staff report.
Yeah, that's the recommendation, so.
Gotcha, an alternate material. okay.
If that's the direction the planning commission would like to go with this, then they could, recommend approval as,
As staff recommends.
As staff recommendation.
approved recommendation, and we can go that route and look to find a different
I'd-
solution.
May I ask a question?
Yep.
So would a stucco or a plaster be an acceptable material as an alternate?
I believe we've accepted that as a building material.
Okay.
Is that true, Steve?
I think it was on Father Jean's, there was a hand troweled plaster or something that was shown, yeah. But I think that was, again, that may just be for a portion of the building. I don't think that was the entire building wall. So that was the one caveat with that.
Yeah, I don't recall. I mean, obviously, the city typically would approve, an LP product or a cement board product or even a architectural, a metal.
And I'm reading this as we're not gonna select the material, but we're
Yeah.
gonna authorize staff to make that
I
decision.
I would approve, a motion to approve with staff recommendation. Move to approve with staff recommendation,
Or the condition or something, or, yeah.
right there. Alternative exterior building to be used. Am I correct on that? Okay.
Second.
So, yeah, it sounds right to me.
May I ask another question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, if we were to patch the masonry back in with light masonry, basically face shells, whether it's split face block or the smooth face that's on there now, would we be required to tooth full-size pieces, or could we just do the 8-inch piece? We would have a few more joints, but the contractor could mortar the joints in so they wouldn't be as visible. It's quite a ways off the cul-de-sac at the end of Adler. And then we would just repaint the entire addition there, the 25 by 60 portion. Again, same colors, same patterns as what's there.
I mean, I think from my perspective, it's getting painted, you're not gonna see the joints, and I don't think that's a big deal.
That would certainly make it a lot easier
Yeah.
for us to make it do it with a light product.
So there was a motion
Mhm.
and a
There's a
second.
motion and a second, yeah.
And a second. Any other discussion? Who had the second?
David did.
Okay, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
And then next up, we'll go item 4.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 4 is for a certified survey map to split a lot. This is really more to adjust, I guess, a lot line. This is owned by West Dallas Real Estate Holding LLC. They own these 2 adjacent lots just off of Highway 100 and next to West Mitchell Street. This is the Palace Restaurant and Days Inn. And then there's this kind of slim lot next to it, which is does not have an address. This 109 Star West Mitchell Street. They're proposing to convey just over half an acre from this larger lot to the smaller lot, and the goal of this would be to make it better suited for future development, and you could get a more significant project on the site if it's a little bit larger. Obviously, you can tell from here the Palace Days Inn doesn't really use this land right now anyway, so there's no specific project that is specified for this yet. But they're thinking that making this change will make it more possible for them.
I'd move approval.
I'll second.
We have a motion in 3 seconds. Any discussion? You can decide who gets the second. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it, the motion carries. We'll move to item 5.
So item 5 is the site landscaping architectural design review guidelines. We've discussed this over the last few plan commission meetings, and tonight we'll be asking for your recommendation. An overview, so this is that final draft of the design review guidelines. We worked with the city's communications team. They dolled it up, made it look nice. So tonight we're seeking your recommendation. We're going to just kind of go through the guidelines as they've been set up, and then we can open up to any comments or questions.
Mr. Mayor, a question?
Go ahead.
For Zach,
Yeah.
are there any changes on what you're gonna present tonight to what you presented the last time?
There is not really any significant changes. No.
It's prettier.
It's pretty.
Okay, it's pretty. Then approve it. I move approval.
It's pretty.
I mean, I second it because it's the same stuff from last time, right?
Duke of efficiency.
There is I guess there is one small change,
Oh.
very small.
Make it a short presentation, Zach.
Yes, I will. We added a section of technical standards as it relates to drive-through uses. This
Oh,
is
yeah.
kind of relevant as we're discussing it now. This is actually modeled after several Canadian cities that I found. Recently we've been discussing a project with Dunkin' Donuts, and we've been kind of looking into these guidelines from several Canadian cities as a good example of how we'd like to do drive-through regulations. So this would just have a condition that the conditions that have to, or the standards that have to be met for drive-throughs would be that the lanes should be located at the side or the rear of the building, not out in front of the building, in between that and the front lot line. The driveways should be located as far as possible from street intersections. This specifically came up because we had a proposal where they wanted to do it 5 feet from the intersection, which would have caused some problems. And then additionally, if there's a corner site, that the standard would say that the driveway should be located on that secondary street to prevent more conflicts on that main street. If you have that site that could work for a secondary street, that's a better solution. So that is the one addition we've made to this.
That was an issue with, was it Taco John's that we brought up?
Yeah, that's something we brought up with Taco John's, and I think their site was a little more unique because of how it's set up. But this is something that there's a few other sites in the city that for corner lots, that's something that we like to have. So specified more clearly. So that was a change we had. But otherwise, yeah, let's flip through this. That's the only real change made. There's a couple of very small wording changes that I believe our communications department checked.
Checklist is kind of new too, right? I mean, I know you were talking about it before.
The
but-
checklist. This is what we will be sharing, with each staff report. This is the nice step version, and so staff will fill in which ones we think they've passed, and then we'll make any notes if there's any comments.
Nice.
So we'll include the staff report.
I think it looks great.
Yep.
I shared it at our office, everybody would give it a thumbs up.
All right.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Is there any other discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The ayes have it, the motion carries. We'll move on to item 6.
Great, thank you, Mayor. Item 6 is the first of our 2 batches of rezonings. This is for Beloit Road. The proposal is to rezone 65 properties along the Westward Beloit Road corridor. This is approximately from 55th Street to 76th Street. The intent is to eliminate split zoning in these properties. We held a public information meeting earlier this month, and there were no objections. We have 48 properties will be switched to just RB, 15 to C2, and 2 to C3. And the public hearing, I think there's a mistype on there, I believe it's October 18th.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next up would be then item 7.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 7 is a very similar thing with Lincoln Avenue. The second batch here tonight, we're proposing to rezone 64 properties along this corridor from X to Y. I did not fill in the street approximations. 41 would be moved to RB, 14 to C2, 6 to M1, and 3 to RC. We've received no objections to date at the public information meeting. It was a joint meeting for both the Beloit Road and Lincoln Avenue corridors. We did have one request to retain zoning for a property that was zoned C2 and was not split zoned. And it was associated with the funeral home there. Chef funeral home. Yep. And so we agreed to honor that request. So we removed that from the list. It was originally 65, but that doesn't impact our goal of eliminating split zoning. And so we
Move
recommend
approval.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any questions, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Item 8 is our tracking updates.
Thank you, Mayor. Project tracking updates. We have a lot of updates this month from our items from last month. Xlock Biosciences, their conditional use permit was approved by council several days after the Plan Commission approval. Plan Commission recommended approval, and they received their business occupancy permit a few days after that. O'Reilly Auto Parts, their building permit was approved September 15th. Makers Row Phase 2, the conditional use permit was approved by Common Council. And the zoning code edits, we have a October 18th public hearing scheduled to finalize, to adopt those with the Common Council. Some other items from past months, AS Towing Incorporated, their conditional use permit was approved by Common Council on the 6th. Masonry Restoration Incorporated, their building permit was approved. Taco John's, you may have noticed along Greenfield Avenue, their construction has began at that site. And then a kind of non-update from Urban Pioneer, we still have, sounds like there's still some financial work-throughs, and that project is delayed.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes.
What's
Yeah.
going on with the old bookstore that's going to be the Ethiopian coffee?
Yes, so that property.
Did I miss that meeting or something?
That there's actually a death in the family of one of the proposed.
Couple
Oh,
items.
right, no, I
Yeah,
know, yeah.
That one is,
Set them back a bit.
it's sent in back, yeah, I don't think we haven't,
Staff had reached out.
Okay, I
You
keep saying
know.
opening soon, and I'm like,
Mhm.
God, her name.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so there's some delays with
Good.
that, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you.
Item 9.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 9, we typically do a joint meeting for November and December with the various holidays that fall right around our typical meeting dates. So we just like to confer with the Plan Commission to determine a date for this. I think our thought, and similar to what we did last year, was to host it on that kind of like the first, second Wednesday of December, kind of in between time for the 2 months. I think the 7th would be what staff would recommend if there's anybody who has any thoughts, comments, complaints.
Well, I definitely won't recommend November 8th. Just saying.
Could you move it to December 14th if that works for, I won't be here. December 7th is the last day for Medicare AEP, so I won't be doing nothing but that.
14th, I've got an orchestra concert for a child. Jazz and orchestra concert.
Okay. We can send
Yeah, if
We
I
can
can,
do
I
a poll
can,
and
you
just
know.
make sure we have a quorum.
Yeah.
either
Maybe-
of those
yeah.
dates probably.
Okay.
I'm pretty flexible after the 8th, as of now.
Right.
Good. If there's nothing else, then I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Let the gavel speak. We are adjourned.